On the other side of that break, we indicated that we'd turn matters economic and this time delve into just what the IMF has to say about this part of the world. And the world's economy is set to grow by just about 3.5% compared to last year's 3.1%. The latest report by the International Monetary Fund shows that this growth is expected to accelerate, mainly buoyed by rebounding oil prices and a climb back on commodity prices. The latest findings released today from the IMF headquarters in Washington, D.C., in the U.S. further show that growth prospects for Africa look bright. The findings show that in sub-Saharan Africa, a modest recovery is foreseen in the year 2017. Growth is projected to rise to 2.6% in 2017 and 3.5% in the year 2018, largely driven by specific factors in the largest economies which faced challenging macroeconomic conditions in the year 2016. Kenya's economy is expected to expanded by 5.7% in the third quarter of 2016, a slight dip from 6% recorded in the third quarter of 2015 on the back of stunted growth in agriculture, manufacturing, real estate and construction sectors in February. The Central Bank of Kenya downgraded economic growth forecasts to 5.7% in 2017 from 5.9% last year, citing uncertainties in the global economy. Well, indeed, on the back of that story right there, to get some expert perspective on those numbers and indeed to tell us whether they hold any water or indeed they're just hot air, on the phone for us is Johnson Derry. He is an analyst, indeed a leader with ABC Capital, and he's here to give us some expert perspective on just that. Johnson, I know that in this part of the world, we have had drought, we have armyworms right across a lot of Africa. We have various issues, the politics in this country currently going on, but we still expect our economy to rebound. Do you think this will be the case?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an interesting term you've used, rebound, and the authorities are telling us we're growing by about 6%, or at least the estimation is growth by 6% in 2016. And CBK have downgraded to 5.7%, as you said, for 2017. From the World Economic Outlook, CBK are saying that, IMF are saying 6.1%. So that's well and good. I was just looking at some numbers to see how they correlate. I think they've been very optimistic about the gross national savings. The gross national savings rate is what determines future growth, because tomorrow's production will be determined by today's investments.
Yes.
Secondly, I was also very interested in the inflation numbers. They're looking at a very optimistic 5.5% average for 2017. I don't think that is the case.
Just to cut you off right there, inflation numbers at the last check about for headline inflation, of course, 10.3% recently, and even looking at other aspects of the entire economy itself, the fact that there has been such little trickle down. We've even started to see a slowdown in the main driver of this economy, sometimes the real estate and construction, that sort of thing. It is actually starting to cool down. Do you think this then should lead us to exuding a lot of confidence the way that we have seen all these parties doing?
So back to the savings rate concerns. The Banking Act amendment must have affected the savings rate in one way or another. And because they've made savings more expensive, especially because banks are generally the main avenue through which people save. And if savings becomes very, very, expensive for banks, then banks might refuse to take some of these deposits. So that I don't know how that fits in the whole narrative, but it's a very optimistic 16% of GDP that they're looking at in terms of savings for 2017. Other aspects that I looked at, I thought very, very interesting is is government net borrowing, which is also the budget deficit. And they've also shown a downward trajectory of government borrowing, and this is to suggest that slowly they expect the private sector to take over. Again, I think with the crowding out we are seeing right now in the general economy, I think that is again also very optimistic assessment of the way things are right now.
Let's talk a bit about the fact that this country is mostly agricultural. Indeed, a lot of the region depends on agriculture. Now we're looking at this attack by the fall armyworm. We've had these massive droughts. And even for the forecasts going forward for the next few months, even maybe into next year, we're not looking at a lot of rainfall. And it is projected that we will continue to struggle. With this being the mainstay of our economy, should we be looking at, well, mitigation measures rather than exuding confidence in terms of growth?
Well, I don't know how it is you can mitigate. Maybe invest in infrastructure like irrigation schemes or such like. But even where those, because those are largely public sector driven. So far, what we've seen has not been very encouraging. So we expect the continuing of growth to be driven by government spending in infrastructure. But that reinforces the narrative of the crowding out effect. Agriculture, like you say, has just hit a road bump with unfavorable weather. And the slack ought to be picked up by other sectors, say, for example, manufacturing. But that has also been slowing down because of crowding out by government borrowing. So as long as government borrowing continues to be very, very heavy, I'm afraid these numbers might be a bit too optimistic.
Johnson, just two questions before I let you go. The first one, of course, that a few years ago, 2013, manifestos indicating that we should be hitting double-digit growth by the year 2017. We are not there yet. What do you think we should be looking for going forward?
Well, I looked at that manifesto at the time it was released, and I thought that was very optimistic because that was a primarily government-driven economic growth model. And I thought at that point that the most successful economic growth models have been private sector driven, and that's where the highest quality has come from, because that actually goes into actual productivity that markets generally want. Now, going forward, we expect more of the same. I can't see any changes. Like I've said earlier, we expect that government spending will continue to be the mainstay of economic growth going forward. And if it goes on the magnitude it's going on, we expect a lot more crowding out. Perhaps what we can expect relief from is maybe the removal of the interest rate cap or the easing of that, so that we can get credit moving again in the economy and stimulate the growth that was already slowing down.
Lastly from me, the fact that you are a renowned libertarian, and what would a person like you do to get this economy out of the current rut? First, of course, we've actually on this show just seen complaints from Wananchi that the trickle-down effect is not there. Lots of money being splashed around for the campaigns, about 1.66 billion shillings, but very little getting to the Wananchi. What would you posit as a solution, Johnson? Well,
actually, I would actually consider, I think one of the things the government is doing that I think is actually commendable is the expansion of the tax brackets. But we'll go a step further and extend tax cuts to even companies, so that we can see accelerated investments into the country going forward, and that will allow us to also be competitive in the global economy. Remember, at 30%, most countries you're competing with, I think corporate tax rates are at between 20 and 25%. So that's where I would like to see the corporate tax rates and make Kenyans more competitive.
Indeed, thank you very much for that. Right there, being Johnson Derry, one of our analysts. He is a libertarian renowned for his well, so to say, really liberal views on the economy and giving us his 2 cents on that information that has been put out by the IMF. And